I'm going to try to give you a brief demonstration of the active reading process using Hills Like White Elephants. And I would always start with a preview, and so I would start with the introductory material. I provided you some online, and it's even better in the book. But some of the things that we should recognize about Hills Like White Elephants is we should note the time period when it was written in the 1920s. And so this was a time of the Roaring Twenties. It was a time where it was kind of a rebellious time in society. It was after World War One, and people were kind of pushing boundaries, pushing the edges of things. And it's Hemingway, I know, is someone who participated in World War One and was pretty enamored with Europe and lived in Europe and wrote in Europe during this time period. So a lot of his books were set in Europe, and he was part of this sort of lifestyle at that time. I also learn a little bit about his writing style. I know Hemingway, so I know he has this pretty simple, easy to understand writing style, but it's under the surface, there's a lot more going on than you may realize. And I think that's pretty clear in this story. It's a very short story. It's just a conversation between two people, but they're talking about something pretty deep and meaningful if we can pick it apart. My next part of previewing would be to look at the title. It's called Hills Like White Elephants, and that's a pretty striking title. I think of a few things when I read this title. First, one of the characters does say this line, and so certainly it makes sense to use this as a title. But I think of white elephants as, if you've ever heard of a white elephant gift exchange, it's kind of one of those exchanges where you give away uh, gifts that people don't really want, and you kind of pass them back and forth. And so that kind of idea of an unwanted gift and a gift that you're willing to sort of give away. And then I also see elephants, and when I read that term, I think of the term elephant in the room. And in a conversation, if you were having a conversation, the elephant in the room would be like the big issue or the big problem that no one's talking about. And just like if there were an elephant in the room and you're just having a conversation and no one's mentioning the elephant, that seems odd. And so there's some big problem and everyone knows about it, but no one's willing to say anything about it. But it doesn't make the problem go away. It's still just sitting there like an elephant watching you. Now, next I would read the essay and read it fairly quickly. And now I'm going to kind of just verbalize what would be going on if I had my pen and or highlighter here to actually mark the text. So I'll stop occasionally and let you know what I would be marking as I'm reading. The hills across the valley of the Ebro were long and white. On this side there was no shade and no trees, and the station was between the two lines of rails in the sun. Close against the side of the station there was a warm shadow in the building and a curtain made of strings of bamboo beads, hung across the open door into the bar to keep out the flies. The American and the girl with him sat at the table in the shade, outside of the building. It was very hot, and the express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at this junction for 2 minutes and went to Madrid. So there's a few things I would note here. One is I would immediately in the margin make a note because I have a personal response to this. I studied in Spain. I've been in this hillside. I've taken this train from Barcelona to Madrid, so I'm familiar with what it looks like. It makes me feel very interested in and connected to the story, even though it's a very different time period. But more importantly, what we would notice in the introduction section is we're getting the setting. So we're getting that it's taking place in Spain and the specific part of Spain where it is. And even more importantly, that it's mostly taking place in a train station. Train travel is still very common in Europe. It's one of the easiest ways for people to get around. The cities are very well connected all through Europe. And so I can picture that. We have introduced the characters, the American and the girl, and something a bit striking here is it has the American and the girl. So I assume the girl is not American, or it wouldn't specify that this person is American. So she must be European, I'm guessing. And at this point, I can't tell what the relationship is between them. They refer to the female character as the girl, and I can't tell yet if it's a young girl or if it's actually a young woman, because we use the term girl to refer to young women of a lot of different ages, including well into their teens and 20s. What should we drink? The girl asked. She had taken off her hat and put it on the table, and so immediately I'm aware that she is not a young girl because here she is in a bar and she is asking what they're going to drink, and she's wearing a hat, which is a mature, kind of a mature piece of attire. She seems very experienced at this bar scene, so I'm assuming she's just a young woman, and they're using girl to refer to female. It's pretty hot, the man said. Let's drink beer. Dos cervezas, the man said into the curtain. Big ones? A woman asked from the doorway. Yes, 2 big ones. The woman brought 2 glasses of beer and 2 felt pads, and she put the felt pads and the beer glasses on the table and looked at the girl and the man. The girl was looking off at the line of hills. They were white in the sun, and the country was brown and dry. They looked like white elephants, she said. So here's where we're getting the title line, though I'm not sure that this reference is necessarily significant, but I think we should keep thinking about this idea of white elephants throughout because it'll get mentioned again. I've never seen one. The man drank his beer. No, you wouldn't have. I might have, the man said. Just because you say I wouldn't doesn't prove anything. The girl looked at the bead curtains. And I paused here because I'm sensing some tension in this conversation, and this tension to me suggests that, one, they've been bickering or having some disagreement for some time, and the tension is kind of bubbling up just randomly in this conversation. And also it suggests that maybe they're in a more intimate relationship because we don't necessarily bicker in those kinds of ways with just friends that we're traveling with or relatives that we're traveling with. This seems a little bit more personal. Just because they painted something on it, she said. What does it say? Anís del Toro. It's a drink. Could we try it? The man called, listen, through the curtains, and the woman came out from the bar. 4 reales. We want 2 anís del Toro. With water? Do you want it with water? I don't know, the girl said. Is it good with water? It's all right. You want them with water? Asked the woman. Yes, with water. It tastes like licorice, the girl said, and put the glass down. And just, if you're not familiar with it, anise is a spice, and it is a licorice-flavored spice, and so this is a, kind of a licorice-flavored liqueur. Later, she's going to mention absinthe, which is a strong drink. It actually has a hallucinogenic effect, so you can't really find it in the U.S., but you can find it in some places in Europe. Yes, said the girl. Everything tastes of licorice, especially the things you've waited so long for, like absinthe. And so I'm kind of wondering about that too, the things you've waited so long for. Oh, cut it out. You started it, the girl said. I was being amused. I was having a fine time. Well, let's try and have a fine time. All right. I was trying. I said the mountains look like white elephants. Wasn't that right? So again, we're seeing the bickering, this cut it out, you started it. So again, that's suggesting to me that they've been having some disagreements for some time now. That was right. I wanted to try this new drink. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks, and I underlined that. It sounds like they've been traveling for some time, and it sounds like she's getting a bit sick of it. She feels like that's all they do. That's where their relationship perhaps is. They go places, they look at things, they try new drinks. That might not be enough for her anymore. I guess so. The girl looked across at the hills. They're lovely hills, she said. They don't really look like white elephants. I just meant the coloring of their skin through the trees. Should we have another drink? All right. The warm wind blew through the bead curtain against the table. The beer is nice and cool, the man said. It's lovely, said the girl. It's really an awfully simple operation, Jig, the man said. It's not really an operation at all. And this I highlight, because this seems really out of place in the conversation that they've been having so far. Not only do they finally bring up a subject that's not just drinking or the scenery around them, this term operation, that's really doesn't fit in with the rest of the conversation. And the term operation makes me think of a few different things. Are they talking about a surgical procedure? Or are they talking about some other type of operation? Is it a sting? Is it, are they taking drugs somewhere? I don't know what they're doing. But, I can't tell what sort of procedure it is and if it's a medical procedure. He says it's not really an operation at all. The girl's response, and I will start noting her body language because she's been doing this quite a bit so far, she's looking away. So here she looks to the ground, and people often look to the ground when they're, avoiding, basically. And so she's not making eye contact with him. What he is saying is making her turn away and disengage from the conversation. I know you wouldn't mind it, Jig. It's really not anything. It's just to let the air in. And so here's another area I underline. You wouldn't mind it, Jig. She's the one involved here. And Jig is kind of maybe a term of endearment of some sort. It's a familiar term, and so that again is leading me to believe that they're in a relationship. This operation, I assume, is really not anything. It's just to let the air in. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm going to underline this because this seems like a really important clue. The girl, again, disengages. She does not say anything. I'll go with you and I'll stay with you the whole time. So again, it's involving her and not him. He says he'll support her. They just let the air in and then it's all perfectly natural. Then what will we do afterwards? So what will we do afterwards? And I'm wondering, this, whatever this is, seems to be affecting them together. We'll be fine afterwards, just like we were before. What makes you think so? That's the only thing that bothers us. It's the only thing that makes us unhappy. And this bothers and unhappy, these seem like really significant terms. Whatever it is causing conflict and trouble in their relationship. The girl again disengages. She looks at the bead curtain, puts her hands out, took a hold of 2 of the strings of beads, and then you think we'll be all right and be happy. So they're not happy and all right at this moment. And so she feels like if she does this, maybe that will help their relationship. I know we will. You don't have to be afraid. And so this was a significant line to me. Again, it's putting the onus on her. She's the one who maybe has a risk here. I know lots of people who have done it. So have I, said the girl. Afterwards, they were all so happy. And see, it ends in a period. There is no exclamation point. There is no enthusiasm for this idea here. Well, the man said, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I wouldn't have you do anything if you didn't want to, but I know it's perfectly simple. And do you really want to? I think it's the best thing to do. But I don't want to do it if you don't really want to do it. In 2 sentences, they've had 2 conversations back and forth, and he's already mentioned twice he doesn't want to do it unless she wants to. And that suggests to me he really does want to do it because he keeps bringing it up. He keeps bringing up this conversation. So I think he wants to. He's just saying he won't, he'll go through it. He won't go through it if she doesn't want to. And if I do it, you'll be happy and things will be like they were. So something's been troubling them right now. And you'll love me. Again, a clue that they're in a romantic relationship. I love you now. You know I love you. I know, but if I do it, then it will be nice again if I say things are like white elephants and you'll like it. I love it. I love it now, but I just can't think about it. You know how I get when I worry. So he is the one worried here. If I do it, you won't ever worry. I won't worry about that because it's perfectly simple. Then I'll do it because I don't care about me, which definitely sounds relationship here, so she'll do it for him. She doesn't care about her. She's putting his needs first. What do you mean? I don't care about me. Well, I care about you. Oh, yes, but I don't care about me. And I'll do it and then everything will be fine. I don't want you to do it if you feel that way. The girl disengages again. She stands up and walks to the end of the station. And we could have all this, she said, and we could have everything, and every day we make it more impossible. So she's looking out and she is seeing something, the future, something bigger than her. And she says we could have it, but every day we make it more impossible. There's a line missing here, so I'm going to add it in. It's in your book, but this one I see that they didn't type in one of the lines. So what did you say is his response? I said we could have everything, and the line that's missing is we can have everything. No, we can't. We can have the world, he's talking here. No, we can't. We can go everywhere. No, we can't. It isn't ours anymore. And I found this an interesting line, one that I'm curious about and would want to think more about. And I'm sensing some difference in the way that they're both thinking about what everything is. I don't think it's the same. His everything is clearly tied to travel, etc., and her everything is something else. No, it isn't. And once they take it away, you'll never get it back. And this seems significant too. You'll never get it back. But they haven't taken it away. We'll wait and see. Come back in the shade. You mustn't feel that way. I don't feel any way, the girl says. I just know things. I don't want you to do anything that you don't want to do, nor that isn't good for me. So again, we're getting the sense that maybe it's a risk for her. I know. Could we have another beer? All right, but you've got to realize. I realize, the girl said. Can't we maybe just stop talking? They sat down at the table, and the girl looked across the hills on the dry side of the valley, and the man looked at her and at the table. You've got to realize, he said, that I don't want to do it if you don't want to. I'm perfectly willing to go through with it if it means anything to you. Ooh, if it means anything to you? Doesn't it mean anything to you? So she's upset by this. It does mean something to her, clearly. We could get along. So here's a sense that whatever it is, she feels like they could survive with it, maybe even do well with it. And he is just going to, he'll only do it if she wants to, and he's just willing to, but he doesn't want to. Of course it does, but I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anyone else. And I know it's perfectly simple, and I think this is the key line of the whole thing here. I don't want anybody but you. So the it is not a thing, the it is a person. And the person could be another person somewhere in the relationship. Maybe there's jealousy or whatever, but that doesn't match very well with the idea of operation. So if I'm thinking of her having an operation and I'm thinking of him not wanting anyone else besides her, I'm thinking that this is a baby. I think that she's pregnant. And so he wants her. He doesn't want to have a family with her. He doesn't want a baby. And so he'll do it, but it's clear that he doesn't want to do it. And I think the operation he is talking about is probably an abortion. He knows lots of people have done it. They were all fine afterwards. It's all simple. It just lets the air in and everything is perfectly natural afterwards. And so that's what I'm thinking as I get to that line. Yes, you know it's perfectly simple. It's all right for you to say that, but I do know it. Would you do something for me right now? I'd do anything for you. Would you please, 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 please stop talking? He did not say everything, but looked at the bags against the wall of the station. There were labels from all the hotels where they had spent nights. But I don't want you to, he said. I don't care anything about it. I'll scream, the girl said. The woman came through the curtains with 2 glasses of beer and put them down on the damp felt pads. The train comes in 5 minutes, she said. What did she say? Asked the girl. That the train is coming in 5 minutes? The girl smiled brightly at the woman to thank her. I'd better take the bags over to the other side of the station, the man said. She smiled at him. All right. Then come back and we'll finish the beer. He picked up the 2 heavy bags, heavy probably because they've been traveling for a long time, and carried them to the station to the other side of the tracks. He looked up at the tracks but could not see the train. Coming back, he walked through the bar room where people waiting for the train were drinking. He drank an anise at the bar and looked at the people. They were all waiting reasonably for the train. He went through the bead curtain. She was sitting at the table and smiled at him. Do you feel better? He asked. I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine. I feel like the relationship is maybe coming to a conclusion here because I don't see a good way out. They don't want the same thing. She wants a family. That is not something he's willing to give. She's getting tired of traveling. That is something he is still wanting to do. And, in this time period, she doesn't probably have a lot of options either. So her family probably doesn't approve of where she is, a single woman traveling with a man, spending nights with a man on the road. This is not appropriate. And she, if she had a baby, she wouldn't have anywhere to go because he doesn't want to care for a baby. And if she doesn't, I don't know that she can live with him because this is what this is what she was hoping they could manage, that they loved each other enough that they could do this. I go back to the title, White Elephants, and again, if we think of these terms like unwanted gift, which a baby might be, unwanted at least to one of them, and we think of the elephant in the room, the big thing that neither of them talk about directly the whole time, but that's what the whole conversation is about. So I hope this helps you see that while there might be a number of interpretations to reading, short story authors typically do have themes in mind that they are trying to communicate. And we can discover those themes if we read really carefully, look for the clues, and try to put them together in our interpretation.